we have a wonderful opportunity today to recognize that this is also a special year for Walkabout. It's the 50th spring senior trip year, celebrating 50 years of Walkabout becoming a part of our school as a premier outdoor educational and I would argue spiritual opportunity where young women and men can go out there and discover something about themselves as well as the community and the wider world that they're a part of. And so to help us understand what Walkabout means to our current students, we have an exciting panel and I'll hand it off to our very own Mr. William Montgomery to moderate this discussion.
As Reverend Forrest said, I'm William Montgomery, and I've served as Baylor's Dean of Faculty. And I was thinking the other day, you all may remember Baylor alumni Dan Barks, who came and spoke in the first semester. If you remember him, he was a Baylor alumni. His father was a headmaster of Baylor. His grandfather was a headmaster of Baylor as well. He went on to be a fighter pilot. But as I listened to Dan Barks that day, one of the things that really struck me was the degree to which he was emphasizing that his Baylor experience and the people of Baylor really helped him define himself. That struck me because I'm a member of the class of 1992, and as I listened to Mr. Barks that day, what I realized was that it's really been my time at Baylor and also the people of Baylor who helped me define myself here as well. It was sitting in Baylor classes that helped me decide what I wanted to major in college. Worked with some of the amazing Baylor teachers that made me realize that I wanted to teach. It was my time with the Baylor players that kind of kicked off a lifetime relationship with the theater. It was Baylor cross country that got me into running. It was Baylor swimming and diving that got me into swimming. There were so many things of my time here that really that formed who I am and formed pieces of me that I've kept with me for my entire life. One particularly memorable thing was a trip in 7th grade. So fun fact, many of you know Miss Heather Ott. This is her 38th and sadly her final year at the Baylor School. But in the year 1987, in the fall of 1987, it was her very first year at the Baylor School. And it was my first day at Baylor, and my first teacher on my first day was Heather Ott. I was in her English class. I was also in her advisory. She ended up being my swim coach, as a matter of fact, in middle school. And she took our advisor group on a climbing trip to Sunset Rock. It was an amazing trip. It was something I had never done before, and it kicked off for me a lifetime love of climbing. From there, I was kind of hooked in any number of ways on Walkabout and all the things that Walkabout could expose you to, but also could teach you. I ended up being a student instructor in my 11th and 12th grade years, and it was that time with Walkabout that kicked off a lifetime relationship with the outdoors for me that's continued in many ways. These days it manifests itself as getting to be a chaperone on the ski and snowboard trip to Utah. You may be thinking that any number of the experiences out there at Baylor just aren't for you. That, oh, well, you don't want to run track because running is not your thing, or you don't want to go on a Walkabout trip maybe because Walkabout's not your thing. So what I would ask you to keep in mind is that so many of the programs that we have and so many of the experiences that we offer, they aren't really about the thing. They're about what that thing can teach you. They're about the experience that that thing is going to give you. And I think that you would find that it might stick with you for a lifetime. So joining us up here on the stage today, we have this year's Walkabout student instructors. It's an impressive group of folks. And so first, I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves. We'll start with Mr. Evan Yin.
Hi, I'm Evan, and I'm a Walkabout instructor.
I'm Gabriel.
I'm Charlie.
I'm Johnny.
I'm Reed.
And I'm Fisher.
All right, so first of all, I'd love to hear from each of you. Tell me about what was it that got you first involved with the Walkabout program? What made you decide to take that step? How did you get involved?
Yeah, so I first got involved with the ski trip to Utah my freshman year. And it was a very memorable experience, especially for one of my friends. And that was like really fun, and I'd never been on a trip like that before, so that's why I'm here.
So I did the Walkabout day camps at a pretty young age, and both my parents got me outside very frequently, and I just And one year I did the overnight camp, I think it was 8th grade, and I really loved it, and so I decided to do afternoon walkabout my freshman year in the fall, and then this is my first year doing it year-round.
So like Gabe, my parents got me into the outdoors very young. I'm very thankful for it. And then coming to Baylor, I had heard about Walkabout and it really interested me. So my first semester, 6th grade year, I signed up for it as a middle schooler, and I haven't looked back. And now as a high schooler, I've been able to do the weekend trips as well as trips over the breaks, and it's been great.
Yeah, around sophomore year, I realized that my career as a lacrosse player wasn't going anywhere. And so I was shopping around for a new after-school activity. I was looking for a balance in between the competitive and the totally leisurely. And I found Walkabout. I signed up with a couple of my friends, and I found something that I really enjoyed.
So, just like Charlie, I've been interested in the outdoors since a young age. My parents took me out on hikes around Chattanooga, that kind of thing. So, I started Walkabout when I was in middle school and have loved it ever since.
Yeah, I got introduced to Walkabout my junior year when I went to Panama. It's my first Walkabout trip, and the experience I had on that, kayaking and surfing, and I asked myself, how come I don't do that at home too? So I kind of made the decision to switch from my sport to Walkabout and pursue, hobbies.
Great, thank you. So I think you could say that participating in Walkabout, whether that's on a trip or whether that's an afternoon activity or whether that's going on a prolonged kind of trip to maybe India or Panama, going on these trips has an effect on you. Participating in the program affects you in some way. So what would y'all like to share with the folks out there about the effect that participating with Walkabout has had on you?
It's just made me a calmer person in general, stepping away from the competitive nature. I like to stay I'm a competitive person, and after school, not having my phone, just taking a step back from everything, it's really nice.
I would say that Walkabout has given me just a great sense of community and place at Baylor, and I'm lucky to have experienced it.
Yeah, Walkabout is a sort of happy medium for me in between, like Fisher said, the competitive nature of sports and also getting a physical outlet, which I really appreciate. And it also cannot be stressed enough how good it is to have a space of time in your day where there are no phones, no technology, no distractions. It's just really nice to have.
Yeah, so I agree with what's been said, and then also for the competitive bit, I have really enjoyed how it's been competing against other people, switching that mindset to competing with yourself and trying to grow, and I think that's a really special thing, and Walkabout does a great way of building that environment. And then also to what Mr. Montgomery said, it's a really interesting learning environment because you're learning some really cool skills, and you're also surrounded by some really cool teachers. And so it's just a great place to learn and grow.
Again, Walkabout is like a perfect balance between competing and just walking in the woods. I like to climb, and that's like one of the more competitive things in Walkabout that I personally have found. And I compete with Evan sometimes, trying to complete a problem, but he usually is better. But yeah, it's just a nice balance at the end of the day to relax and take a step back.
Yeah, it's affected my Baylor experience by, I would definitely say by the people. Like when I was younger, I got to meet a lot more people, and now that I'm older, I'm so excited. I'm actually genuinely so excited to see wrestlers come on a trip that I'm on, or people that I don't normally get to hang out with, because I always find everyone interesting and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So you all know Walkabout's motto, and maybe those of you in the audience have seen it, and it's essentially, I guess we could say with this being the 50th year, making students uncomfortable for 50 whole years. And that might make some folks out there nervous, but maybe they're interested in Walkabout, but maybe they're also kind of hesitant to sign up. And so what would some of you say to those folks who really, they're thinking about going on a trip, but they're not so sure about this whole getting uncomfortable thing?
Yeah, so there's a lot of kind of leeway to what we do. So, you don't have to be the best at everything. You're able to fail, and that is a great thing because you grow in those situations. So we really provide just a beginner-friendly environment. So you learn from students who are maybe more experienced in certain activities, and then you can just grow and develop those skills. So when later you're maybe an upperclassman, and then you're the one teaching those skills to the people who may be less experienced.
What I would say, and what really helped me in getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and Walkabout, is having a friend alongside you. That can just make the whole experience a lot less intimidating. Experiencing something with somebody else, I found really helpful.
Absolutely anyone can sign up for a trip. It's not exclusive to doing afternoon walkabout. It's really just whatever interests you. You like have a little inkling, maybe I should do this. I would go for it. It's how I found some of the most important things in my life.
It's also important to stress the wide variety of trips to take. There are trips that are several weeks. There are trips that are a couple days. There are trips that are only a few hours. So I think no matter what you're looking for, there's going to be something that matches your level of comfort.
So one of the great things I think about Walkabout is that it's yes, it is an afternoon role, but a lot of these folks, they're occupied in the afternoons. And so you can go on weekend trips or break trips as well. So I'd love for some of you all to talk about, like, what do break trips look like, and maybe you could couch that in the form of what was your most memorable break trip experience.
Yeah, so I've been really fortunate. I've been able to go on a lot of break trips with Walkabout, surfing in Folly Beach, skiing with Mr. Montgomery at Brighton, and then one of my favorites was Panama. We did kind of a science research, hiking and exploring adventure there, and it was great. While we were there, Mr. Irvin, he went with us, as well as a senior who graduated last year, Luke Thompson, and they are so passionate for Mr. Irvin about biology, and with Luke, as some of you know, with birds. And so I really enjoy biology, but birding is not my forte at all. And their passions were super interesting because they were teaching us while we were doing our activities about certain things we were passing. So if we saw a bird, Luke would point it out. And so their excitement and just level of engagement in what we were doing really brought the excitement to me, and I thought that was a really special thing.
A little over a year ago, I went on the Baylor Walkabout trip to India, and I have not shut up about it since. We spent 16 days among friends without technology in the beautiful landscape and beautiful and variegated cultures of India. It was without a doubt one of the most memorable experiences of my life, and one that I wouldn't trade for the world. It was not something that I envisioned myself doing when I first heard of it, but honestly, one of the greatest experiences that I've ever had, and I could not recommend it enough. I could talk about it at length, but I'll spare you by just saying that.
Yeah, thank you. Sometimes the memories aren't doing the thing. Looking here at Evan, we had the experience of getting to dig an SUV out of 15 inches of snow together on this past ski trip. So the experiences are varied. But what about the folks who are out there who think, all right, I'm the reverse. I can't go on weekend trips because I'm occupied in that way. But I would love to hear about afternoon walkabout. I have a free season this spring. I'm looking for something to do. Talk to me about afternoon walkabout and your favorite afternoon activities and what happens.
After-school walkabout is a lot like any other after-school activity. Just head to the Perry Center, which is over by the tennis courts, change clothes, hop in the car, and head out. I guess the difference would be that it's going to be something different every single day at Walkabout. I would say that my favorite trip, or my favorite afternoon activity that we do, would actually be our cleanup days. And while it might not be everyone's favorite activity to pick up trash in the woods after a long day of school, I think it's a great way to sort of cleanse the natural world around us and it can be a very rewarding way to spend your afternoons.
Yeah, my favorite afternoon walkabout activity would probably be bouldering. Bouldering is rock climbing, but we probably don't get above 20 feet in walkabout, and you have pads below you and people there to catch you if you fall off the pads. And it's challenging because it's kind of a puzzle, especially outside where you can pick anywhere to go on the rock. And it's also a mental challenge is, if you're scared of heights, like it's just one more foot, but sometimes that can be scary. It's also the physical aspect. It's just good to get out there and push yourself.
So I can tell a lot of folks in the audience today are thinking about the weekend trips because maybe they've got a free weekend and often trips are going. So what can you all tell them about weekend trips and how those work and what they look like?
Yeah, so we have all different kinds of trips, from just a day hike to rafting. There's just a whole tons of things to do, so whatever interests you. And probably my favorite weekend trip has been the recent caving and climbing trip designed by our very own Fisher Greenfeld. It was one of the more challenging trips that I've been on, and it really helped me discover how far I've come as a climber, and I thought it was really refreshing this is how far I've come, and it was really nice.
Yeah, I agree. I think the climbing trips are really fun, but I also enjoy the other trips, especially the bikepacking trip that happened this weekend. That was awesome. Designed by me. And what else? You said kayaking. Kayaking was really fun. And I would also recommend probably if you're not really into outdoors and you want to do a trip, I would say the one-day backpacks are probably the best thing to try.
So one of the great things about walkabout trips is you not only get memories, but you often get some great pictures. And so I was hoping that each one of you could maybe talk about a picture that you've taken away from one of these trips and what it represents in your time on the trip.
So this is a photo from a weekend trip at the Upper Fungus climbing spot in Chattanooga. I believe this was the first walkabout trip that I ever went on, and it was such an amazing experience because I was so out of my comfort zone. I didn't know anyone who was going to be there, but it turned out amazing. And I think that the day after I went on this trip, I ended up planning another climbing trip with some friends that I met on the trip. It was just an amazing experience.
Sorry, Upper Fungus always makes me laugh. This is me on the India trip. So this is our group in the northern state of Sikkim after a 3-day-long trek through the base of the Himalayas. And I think this represents the friendships that we have created over this 16-day trip, being together, interacting on such a genuine level, and we had just been handed these silk scarves, and you can see on our faces just how much we've enjoyed ourselves. Yeah.
Is that you in the middle, Johnny?
That's me in the middle with the Derrick Henry beanie. That's me.
Yeah, so this is me. This is the countryside of Panama, and so that was a surfing trip, surfing kayaking. But this is right after I think we went up to this little restaurant. It's more just a house on a mountain, and they didn't have running water or anything, so it was pretty underground. And so, but it was really fun, and you felt like you were actually having an adventure. I think the worst things that I tend to avoid for trips is touristy, just kind of where everyone goes. And so I had the opportunity to go somewhere where not a lot of people go to.
Yeah, so this is also from the Panama trip. This is at the surf town called Santa Catalina. And that person on your left looking cool riding the wave. That's Gabe. The person on the right with his left foot up in the air, that's me. I had never surfed at that point. And it just goes back to kind of the all experiences. That's pretty much summed up in that one photo right there. And so I thought it was really special because it just shows that, and then it also shows, you know, after a few days I was right up there with Gabe and I was having a great time.
So this is the photo I picked. We are in India. This trip happened this year, and we're sitting next to the Rangit River on this hotel. We're waiting for breakfast, drinking milk tea, and playing cards with everyone. And this was basically the whole trip. We would travel around the northern state of Sikkim in India, and we'd sit in these extremely scenic, awesome, beautiful spots and drink tea and play cards. And just that experience of talking to people, talking to new people, getting that experience without any phones is really awesome.
Yeah, so this is the end of the day of that caving and climbing trip that I previously mentioned. I think it just culminates like the satisfying nature of a campfire after a long, hard day of work. We had just eaten a delicious dinner, and we're just, after a hard day of work, we were just chilling by a fire, and it was just really satisfying at the end of the day.
So I would argue that either getting to go on a walkabout trip as a chaperone or as a student, it feels a little bit like winning the lottery. And what they say about the lottery is you can't play if you don't win. Excuse me, you can't win if you don't play. With Walkabout, you can't go if you don't sign up. So I think lots of folks out there are probably curious, how do I sign up? How do I go?
So Ashley sends out the weekly email about what trips are coming up this weekend, and at the bottom of that email it usually has the Walkabout schedule. So if y'all look at that schedule and compare it with your schedule, you can see what trips you want to go on. And you can sign up a month, a week in advance. And yeah, just having that schedule ahead of time is really nice. So keep that in mind and check your email, look at your schedule.
So like you email Ashley, like you said, or you can email Tim. And I get a lot of questions like I don't know what to say when I sign up, and it's not really like an application. You just kind of just tell them that you want to go, and that's all you really have to do. It's simple.
Thank you. So I can't thank you all enough for your participation in the Walkabout program, but also your leadership of it. I think it's a pretty amazing thing to get to go on these trips and see how Baylor kids get to lead in some pretty unique ways, including Evan Yim just out of nowhere starting to dig a car out of 15 inches of snow on this past trip. Why? Because that's what he needs to do. So that's our program for today. Thank you all so much for being in it. I'll hand this over to Rev Farr.